Tony, can you without getting into company specific stuff, just you on a personal level in terms of the way that you work, are you like primarily a 3D guy, or do you sketch mostly, or is it a combination of both? Like, what is your go-to method of coming up with a concept?
Gotcha. So in the past at DCC and all these other um, experiences before, I was mainly a sketch and Photoshop, super like into Photoshop because that's how I was taught, and that's how Art Center supported, and obviously my graphic career in the past as well. So I was heavy into Photoshop, but I wasn't. My process wasn't like doing a stack of underlays. It was that stack of underlays is all in that one Photoshop
Okay.
sketch. So in that Photoshop file, there would be so many layers of me continuously editing proportions, design,
Okay.
theme on that one sketch until I thought, okay, this is ready for rendering, and then I would render the shit out of
Ah,
it.
okay, okay,
Um, so that it was clear to anybody that I was selling it to, and it was clear for any cast member that I was
okay.
working with. And that seemed to resonate well in DCC. Going beyond that, I brought a little bit of that to Lucid, and doing similar things, sketching a lot, photoshopping a lot, showing exactly what's in my mind on paper so that there's nothing left to guess,
Okay.
right? If you look at any of my sketches, I'm trying to figure everything
Okay.
out so that there's no, like, if you were modeling something, the worst thing you want to see is like airbrushed away and
Yeah.
everybody's left
Yes.
guessing,
Yeah.
right? So that's my internal goal, is to just explain everything so that if it does get selected, everybody knows what to do.
Okay.
And then later on, now coming into Genesis, brought that over as well, but now we're talking about something different because the company is shifting towards digital design, which is, to them, means designers doing a little bit of cast
Yeah.
modeling, and whether it's NURBS or Sub D or Blender. And I had to really flip myself because I was so keen on figuring everything out 2D, then working with a professional and getting it resolved, learning how to resolve it, and working together on the product. Now, every designer, I would say, at Genesis has the capability to sketch a little bit, model their own thing from the sketch to package, visualize it even, and then present it as well. And that's what I've also built for myself as a habit of doing now, is the whole spectrum. Now, you're not talking about A class surfacing or
No, 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 no.
anything.
But
It's
it's
just
like, vo-
presentable.
yes, yes. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
How did you make that transition?
I think it was a lot of, there was a lot. I mean, Genesis has three studios globally.
Yes.
We have one here in the States, one in Germany, and one in Korea, obviously.
Yes.
So, how it came to me and then to the team at the time was being influenced by other studios. Like, if you remember, Sasha joined Genesis a while
Yes.
back, brought a lot of this digital design, and his team of designers that were very capable. Maybe you've worked with
Yeah.
some of them, 3D wise.
Yes.
And at the time, we were like, "Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
Like, we need to do something about
Yes.
this and change our habits." And I think it's this, through this global kind of friendly
Yes.
competition, that made all of us better, like made us realize where we were at in the industry, and that if we don't do something about it, we would be lacking in certain
Okay,
skills.
so you have
So,
this realization, you freak out, and then what are you actually
yeah.
doing to go like, what are you actually, how are you applying yourself to get better at Alias, for example? If,
So the beginning was super
yeah,
tough. Like, not only am I doing complete Photoshop renderings that take a while, I would also then provide the early kind of NURBS models. Sub D wasn't as popular back then. NURBS skin of what I thought that sketch looked like over a package. And it was, think corners weren't closed, surfaces were kind of wonky, but one after another, you get used to it, you get better at it, you get closer to your original intent. But then what I realized is the sketching and the Photoshop got shrank, right? You only have so much time to do something throughout the day. So your design time becomes very condensed and very straight to the point so that you can do these quick sketch models and then visualize them and then show them to the bosses. And but obviously you have a team that's surrounding you that supports all this, and gets it to an even higher level. But for a lot of our what we call weekly reports, we just throw out these kind of designer, and it's kind of replacing Photoshop in modern sense that designers are just sketch modeling. Not everything's resolved, but you get a much clearer picture of how that sketch looks in on
Yeah,
package.
I think yeah, that's definitely true. That's definitely true. I just what's interesting to me is how you are actually applying yourself, especially if you are just stuck to, you are very reliant on your on sketching and Photoshop. Like, are you are you just spending a ton of time with Alias to try and shoehorn something together? Are you asking other colleagues, or because there isn't really, or at least then probably not that much stuff online? um, or were you
Yeah,
fairly proficient at Alias anyway, but you just weren't using it?
I was okay. I wouldn't say I was like a master, but I knew the tool. Because at Art Center you do have to use it. But I was doing very fundamental things. So I knew, I would say, like
Okay.
30% of the program. So that 30% I applied to the transition into what we are doing today in showing things, and at the time of applying myself, it was all of the above. It was asking colleagues, asking people from the cast team, like, or just watching. Sometimes you're sitting next to them and working on a particular design, and they're building things a certain way, and you're like, oh, so that's how it's done,
Yeah.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
know. A lot of it comes from just observing, also. But I think the fact that we had to wake up and apply ourselves and find whatever resources to do so, um, was the big thing, I think, for myself and the whole team, at Genesis.
I think it's, yeah, I think it's a very positive thing. I think the struggle, the overwhelming thing for students now is that they seem to be overwhelmed with, like, what should I apply myself to,
Yeah,
because it's not just a
yeah,
case of like, okay, I need to learn 3D. It's like, is it Alias, is it Blender, is it fucking Sub D, is it Gravity Sketch, is it all of the above? And
right.
I mean, I've got my theory on that, but like, what is your stance on that, to some person wanting to know, like, what should I be focusing on?
I think for anybody watching this, and to bring clarity, I think to go from big picture first, every studio operates slightly differently, how they're transitioning into a digital world. So depending on where you'd like to go, like if you were a student out of school and you had a particular brand or a career in mind, I would say understand their process of where they're, ask around. I think that you can find the answer if there's people in the industry, and find out what program they are using or they're going to be using, and learn it, so that it's not like you're learning Blender, Alias, Sub D, all of the above, where you become lukewarm at
Yeah,
everything,
yeah, yeah.
right? Um, I think it's important to find out information of where you'd like to go. If you want to apply there, then that's the tool that you use. Because every studio nowadays, like you said, there's so many different softwares, so many different ways to do the same thing, that it's kind of confusing. And I think that's the only thing I could say is that if you know where you want to go, try to find the answer and then build towards that. But in Genesis's terms, we went from NURBS to sub D, which most of the team is prolific, can do it now, and we're kind of transitioning into Blender, but mainly for animations. So we're touching on every single little thing, but we're also transitioning so fast that I feel like a lot of designers get a little lost, even internally. Even internally, like it's moving so fast that there's no time to sit down and really grip onto something because the company wants to try another
Yeah,
thing again
yeah.
and learn a new language, basically. But yeah, for any young designer, I would just do some research and ask around and see what programs they're using, just so you can focus on that one. Um,
I would like to add something to that, if I may, Tony.
yes,
I
please.
I think, okay, if we just talk about 3D for a second, right? There is so much. If you okay, if you are putting a car together, there is so much to learn about this complex form in order to make it look right. And there
Right,
are certain, like, understanding proportion. That's one thing. There's surface tension. There is, controlling your lines so that they're not essing all over the shop. Um,
right.
these are things that I think they if you master that, I mean, you never master it because it's an ongoing learning thing, and it is, it takes a long time to fully understand all of those things. But I think if you can get proficient at one thing, rather than,
Hmm.
as you say, jumping from between different, like being lukewarm at everything. If you learn how to put a car together, you can always, if it really it comes down to the point that you're working in a company and they say, well, thanks, Tony. We love your Maya models, but actually we're using Blender over here. Then you go, okay, well, I'm going to spend a month or two or whatever the case is and apply myself and learn that package. But the fundamentals are all the same. You still need to,
Correct.
you
Yeah.
need to, you need to look at a volume and go like, why is this not working? My
So true.
yeah, your front overhang is lower than the sill, and okay, so you need to push them up. So
Yeah.
those things need to line up, or your A pillar is in the wrong place, or the roof line is has got no snap at the whatever it is. But I think if
Totally.
on the subject of 3D, the more you build and the more volumes that you put together, the easier it becomes for you to dissect these problems and to understand to fix issues when you're
Yes.
putting a car
Yeah.
together. Plan shapes, things like that. I mean, that's a universal thing. There's obviously, you know um uh, uh like debate of like NURBS versus polygon and whatever. It I think from a designer's standpoint,
Yep.
you are communicating an intention to a pretty high degree. But again, you will have a professional that will be able to fix, the little corners that you can't quite resolve or whatever. But as you say, like if you bring a volume that it shows so much
Hmm.
more information than just a an image. Um,
Right, right.
Yeah, I don't know if
I,
confused the whole situation a lot more, but yeah,
No, not at all. I think you made some really valid points. I mean, at the end of the day, these are just tools, right? They're
right,
tools to help you explain what's in your mind.
exactly. Communication
And
tools,
the
yes,
tools are getting quicker, they're getting easier to use.
yes,
But if your fundamental design knowledge isn't there, then the tool might expose you to things that you don't want others to see. Right?
yes.
With you have to learn about design, learn about proportions so that when you use those tools, it enables you to show what you have in your mind.
Yeah.
And that's a super valid point.
I think just like I mean to conclude on that little rant or ramble or whatever, that it just
Not at all.
nothing
Not at all.
nothing is the bottom line is to anybody out there is that nothing is ever going to be a waste of time, especially if you're
Correct.
putting volumes together. It's everything you're going to learn, and you're going to build on that knowledge. And even if you choose one piece of software and you just stick with that for, I don't know, for your whole life. I mean, not for your whole life literally,
Hmm.
but like for a long period of time. It's not going to be obsolete because you're going to learn how to put a car together.
You are totally right.
Yeah.
Totally true. Yeah.
Um, Tony, can you talk to me a little bit about your transition into management?
Yes. So I had joined Genesis for about 3 years, and then at the same time the team was growing, right? So when I first joined, that's when Genesis decided to separate itself from Hyundai. That was about the time that it happened, and at that time, that's when we separated designers. Like, these are the Hyundai guys, these are the Genesis guys. But our team was like literally like three people, or maybe even two at the time. So naturally, the team had to grow, and the company was nice enough to ask me to look into possible potential hires. At the time, I think I was just like a senior or maybe even lower position, and I was like wondering, like, why would you ask me to look into some potential people? And it's all for forward planning, right? Like, as the team grows, as the brand matures, as the studio grows, you will eventually move up the totem pole. And that transition of becoming so focused on yourself as like a senior, where you just basically you're only doing everything that you thought was right, and putting all your passion into your own work. The hardest thing is to transition from that into caring about everybody's work, flipping yourself upside down, and then saying to yourself, okay, these guys aren't competition, they're my team, and I need to holistically take care of them and give them the opportunity to shine. Give them the opportunity that the company has given me in the past to do what they need to do to accelerate the company in the right path.
So who gives you
And that
that? Who
transition,
gives you that insight? Because that is a brilliant insight. Not everybody views it like that. I mean,
oh, really?
no, I mean, I mean that's a great insight to have. It is like that. It is like, I mean, it's a
Hmm.
cheesy thing to say, and I'm the least corporate person ever. But at the end of the day,
Hmm.
yes, it is a team exercise. You are working with other
Right.
people, and I've seen guys even in management where they're like, no, it's still my competition. Even at like fucking director level, it's like, uh
Unfortunately,
yeah.
yes.
And it's so embarrassing to, like, I feel embarrassed for some of these guys, because it's like you're talking about grown
Yeah.
men that still haven't been able to
Yeah.
let go. So, like,
Yeah.
how did you have that insight?
To be honest, it was self-driven. I would say, for most of my life, I always thought of the world as if you if you just treat somebody how you want to be treated, then you're a good guy. You wouldn't be an a-hole of the world, right? So naturally, I put that kind of mentality towards that transition of one day I was a senior designer, only focused on myself and doing what I thought was right. Second day, you get this title, you get maybe a bump, but your role is flipped upside down. And because of my inner core of I wish you know, if I became a manager, I would want to be treated this way. I would not want to be looked down upon, or and multiple things of things from personal past experiences and hearing from friends and colleagues from the past. You know, correcting myself. This inner battle of, okay, this is not about you. This is about them. This is not, and it's all inner driven, I would
Yeah.
say. It's this drive to flip yourself upside down. And it doesn't happen overnight. Your position might change overnight. Your pay grade might change overnight. But this mental shift is it takes a while, at least for me. And I have to say, once you embrace it, once you see the light of it and how your team shines, it's much more rewarding than what I was trying to do in the past.
Dude,
And
yeah.
just seeing the smile go for
No, no, no,
it.
no, 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 no. You carry on, carry on.
Just seeing the smile and the appreciation from the team and or the bosses, and it's like, wow, this is another world that I've never tapped into of not only emotion but human to human behavior, right? Before you're sketching, you're LeBron James, you're trying to make all the shots,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You're trying to make it happen, get your sketch selected, get your model picked, get your tapes on the model, whatever, have a voice in the company.
yeah.
Stepping back, taking a third person point of view, taking care of the team, that took like a year, maybe two, to adjust for me. And the beginning, I'm sorry for my team members that are watching this. It was rough. It was tough. They were like, is this guy even, ready? Is this guy, I bet they were thinking that, is this guy set for this, ready for this? And we grew together. They hung out with me. They stuck it out with me. They grew with me. And I always tell them up straight. Obviously, I'm new to this, but I'm always here to support you guys. And it sounds cheesy, it sounds artificial, but that's really how I operate now. I've I barely sketch anymore. I'm constantly on Zoom or whatever WebEx meetings. I'm trying to give the team the best light possible, even helping them animate, helping them whatever, render up some whatever they need to push their work out. Because I think that's how I want to be treated. And I think that's how the company will benefit the most. Because if it's only a one man show or people are isolated into silos, there's no way the company will make an impact.
Dude,
But yeah,
no,
it's
but
internally driven.
it's a really beautiful outlook and a great advert for um anybody that might or is transitioning into management. That because there is this thing, like companies are structured in a way that you've been doing something a certain amount of time, and then the company goes, well, you know what, like John over here has been a designer for 5 years, so we need to give him a promotion into management. And it's like, well, John's obviously interested because he's like, okay, I'm making bank, let's do this, and I've got a
Mm-hmm.
title and whatever, and it's off to the races. But it might be that, like, John is socially retarded, and he is not
Mm.
great at looking after people, because all of a sudden you're not responsible for um, some images or an object,
Right.
you are it's a
Right.
completely different skill set, and
Right. Right.
your outlook on that and your attitude towards it, I think, is very admirable, Tony. And I think,
Thank you.
it's surprisingly, unfortunately, it's not always that obvious, and people and also, to be fair, in John's defense, or whoever John is, they're also not always given the tools to do that. So, like in your case, I mean, you
Right.
had a pretty special insight, and there are people like yourself that exist, but there are a lot of guys that are kind of given this promotion, and the golden carrots dangled in front of them, um, but they haven't really been shown how, what the next step should be, and how their role should
Yeah.
transition. And I
Yeah.
think it's a shame, it's a real shame that yeah. But I think, to be fair, it's I don't want to be negative, because it's not necessarily always the case, but I think
Hmm.
there should probably be more structures in place, or supports in place for people transitioning into management, to show how to do these things better.
I totally agree. I mean, literally, from one senior to management, they just showed us a couple training videos on how not to offend people, and very very like rudimentary
Yes. Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Just culturally aware, everything, like everything that basically everybody knows already. But how you treat your team, how you distribute work, and all the nuances
Yes.
of the design
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
I mean, the videos they show us are for the general
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
company. Like finance team gets the same
Yeah.
video. Like it's not
Yeah.
catered for design. It's not specific. And design is so interesting because we're not dealing with black and white. We're dealing with the gradations of the world. And like you said, we need to be trained. I mean, I had to personally train myself mentally, and the first few years, I was probably not doing so well for the team and not doing so well for my bosses, and it wasn't until literally like a year and a half later that I was like, okay, just drop yourself out of this equation and see this as a whole.
Yeah.
And if I never did, I could have never done that. I could have just like done what you said, like do what I usually do, and only focus on my own work. I would have gotten the same pay, same position,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel like people do need to understand that your role has changed, and that realization shouldn't come from only yourself, but supported by the company, and help you along the path to basically make the brand better in
Yeah.
the biggest picture, right? So that your brand has a shot at making an impact in this time period.
But what are your thought?
Um,
What are your thoughts then on maybe somebody that is, maybe they openly, they're not interested in becoming a manager per se, but
yeah,
the person is delivering, and they are really, like, you get those guys, right? Those fucking,
yeah,
like, creative
super
powerhouses, that
talent. Yeah,
crazy talented,
yeah,
and they make everybody else look great. But they maybe don't say, they just sit in the corner, they do their shit, they keep quiet. um I also,
right.
like, what do you think, what happens to guys like that, or girls like that?
I think the company needs to make positions for these
Yeah.
guys because those are the raw talents that every company wishes they have,
Yeah.
right? So it's not like you keep them on a super whatever ceiling, low ceiling, and then just hope that they're happy in their corner doing their thing. You have to find a way to nourish these people as well.
Yeah.
So there's people out there that can design, there's people out there that can manage, there's some people that can do both. And you need to have a space in the studio for all of these guys. And they're all just as crucial for the survival of the brand and
Yeah.
the company.
Yeah, yeah. I think yeah, that's true.
Um,
It's very true. Absolutely, yeah.
I think I call those guys like specialists, right? Or at
Yeah,
least
well,
that's how
I mean,
like
I know, there are some,
Audi was.
yeah, there are certain, there are certain structures in various companies that exist for, creative. They might be given a term like creative specialist, which is,
Yeah,
they aren't necessarily going to be looking after a whole studio, but they're also not penalized for not taking on
right.
more responsibility, because in a sense they also take on a lot of responsibility, but and I think that these things should be distinguished. um
Yes. Yeah. Totally agree with that.
but it's also difficult when you've got this big corporation running at 100 miles an hour, and
Yeah.
it's yeah, that's an ongoing, yeah, it's difficult, it's very difficult.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. I mean, from a company's perspective, like we would like to think that design is really important and we make the calls and the shots on the structure of the company, but the company sometimes is structured for everybody, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Down to every single the front desk lady has this is in all in the same structure. So that
Yes.
structure is geared towards the masses.
Yes.
And I think, Genesis looking into the future, and we it's publicly announced that we have a new studio coming up,
Okay.
that we have a chance to create those roles, those spots for people to shine. I think that's what's important. Um, make make it a home for people so that they're excited to come to work to do what they do best, and that is the best place for them to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
And that I think is the dream place for me to work, and I'm sure for a lot of other people.
Cool. Tony, what cars are you into? Because
Okay, so this
I've
is
been
a
criticized for not asking enough questions on cars. So I'm gonna do that now, given that you're a car designer.
okay. So this is gonna be like career damaging if if the wrong people hear it, but I'm not a super gearhead. I'm not like a car fundamental like car guy
Yeah,
that knows everything about
yeah,
cars. And because of my past, like I grew up in Taiwan, my dad was not around to explain this stuff to me. I was exposed to them. So my understanding of cars is very
yeah.
visual. Is very from experimental and visual. So my I love cars that have an expression, have a character. Um, the Porsche
Not,
Longtail, I think, is one of my favorite from is it the 70s or
yeah, yeah,
60s?
yeah.
Um, I think those cars are the epitome, like the best design and the best time to be designing. In modern days, I like Audi R8, very clean design. You could say it's like boring. I like the Taycan, the recent Taycan.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
My things are all over the place because I don't treat cars as a cult following. I treat it as I really feel something when I see this. I see it more like a
Yeah,
sculpture,
yeah, yeah.
and then right, I see it as a piece of art, and I study it. I'm able to recreate it from visuals. I can study a shape and understand how it's constructed, how it's executed to get to that proportion or whatever. So my vision on cars is very unfortunately I just on the shapes and the design basically. But yeah, if you know because the industry is set up in a way where there's a lot of car guys, obviously, right? You join this industry, you're a car guy, you can disassemble a car and put it back together. And I really wish I knew all that. I really am intrigued by all that, and I wish somebody had taught me or influenced me at a young age to do all that or exposed me to that. But I didn't have that exposure, so I can only appreciate it from my daily life and the way I'm experiencing them on a daily basis, which is seeing them drive around in California as kind of machines for people to get from A to B, but some of them are beautiful, some of them are not.
I
So,
think, but I
yeah.
think it's not necessarily unfortunate, that you aren't a quote unquote petrol head. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
really either. I love. I would, yeah. I guess I would say that I'm like first and foremost a creative, than a quote unquote gearhead or petrol head, so to speak. But
Yeah.
I love cars. I love 911s. Yeah, any like but I was always drawn to the sculpture of them, and I think that there's nothing wrong with that. I think that being said, as a designer, you do need to be good at you need to be curious. You need to be asking the right questions.
Yeah.
You need to come up with innovative solutions. You need to problem solve. Those are very, very important things. Do you need to know how to rebuild straight six? No, you fucking don't. Like, I mean, it's great if you can, but the thing is, like,
Yeah.
we also moving into a direction now where, the whole we've been talking about it for a long time, where you say, like, what is a car mean in an autonomous environment, but like we are really moving in the direction of, like,
Oh,
looking at
heck
it
yeah.
from as a real product. um
Yeah.
so I mean, I've had this conversation with a couple of girls as well that have said,
Hmm.
like they were kind of shunned because they didn't know this obscure alpha from the 72 or whatever the case is. And she was like,
Right.
it's, if you guys are all going from the to the same pool of inspiration, you're going to end up with the
Right.
same fucking result. Plus, that's the
Right.
thing you guys
That's
talk about all the time amongst yourselves, in and out of
right.
work. So, like, this thing of,
Right.
like, I need to be a car enthusiast, I think is bullshit. Um, so, don't apologize for not being a petrol
Thank
head,
you.
Tony. Don't
Thank you.
apologize. Do you have any? Do you have any uh cars at all? Like, of
Okay,
cars of
so
passion, because I've got a car,
cause
but
of
mine is just like functional, and it's so uninspiring. It's just does what it needs to do. It transports the kids. It doesn't break down, and it's cheap to run.
okay.
But I had to give up my
I
toys.
had a I had an Audi A4 for the longest time. That was my passion because that was one of my favorite eras of Audi. It was like a super clean egg. Um, this thing that I thought was really great design, and it was I think the 2004 model
Oh
or
wow.
something like
Okay,
that. It
so
wasn't
like the
something like super
Bauhaus
far
thing, yeah.
back, but yeah, yeah. So I thought that was great. But after having the kid, as you know, cars change and the wives want SUVs. So we recently got a Genesis GV80 because of companies' allowance and stuff like that. And that's kind of our go-to car now.
Cool.
It's just
Well,
pack the kids in and groceries and that's it.
cool. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Tony, I think, like, we'll probably wrap up, and at the
Okay.
risk of repeating myself or repeating my question, what?
It's late over there.
No, it's but what advice for anyone wanting to become a designer today?
I think you touched on it a little bit, and I am a firm believer in being curious, not in the sense of only automotive. Being curious on how people live, how people interact with each other, how people interact with their pocket devices, how they go from A to B, where they live, what kind of geography. Be open minded to everything about humans so that in the future you can be a true designer that problem solves for humanity and not just for cars. Cars are a part of humanity's um, need, basically, but I think there's something bigger in the future that designers need to contribute to make society better and to make people's lives, whether it's more efficient or more green, to save the world, whatever it is. I think designers in the future really need to focus on human behavior and design for that.
That's some powerful shit, Tony. That was awesome.
That's uh, um, it's, it's deep. It's deep. It's deeply rooted.
Dude, thank you very much. That was awesome. And I thoroughly enjoyed meeting you, dude. It was really good.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, the honor was mine, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to
Oh,
you.
you more than welcome. Thank you.
You're literally like a celebrity to me. So. Yeah.